Hey all, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth, as always, with some ideas and insights for what to pay attention to when you're ready to really grow your business, when you're ready to scale it. So it is the end of March, so it's now is the decision to get focused because we're really heading into Q2 right now. So it's kind of up to you. Your decision is, are you kind of going to go forward the way that you have been, leave things as they are, or are you focusing on how to do things differently and how to drive better results in this quarter coming up? So, for many, their patterns of the past really get them stuck. So now we have to start out. You might be starting out with good intentions, but those tend to fizzle pretty quickly. So we have to get really stronger than that. You may be weighted down right now with fighting all the fires, fixing all the mistakes, all the day-to-day, all the operational stuff, versus really having the time, the energy, and the bandwidth to focus on strategy, which is, of course, what it takes to change your trajectory and to drive different and higher outcomes in this quarter coming up. And then, of course, for the rest of the year, it really, like 1 degree change makes a lot of difference in the end, right? So every time we come to a milestone like that, Q2 is upon us, it's a huge opportunity. So could be that moment when you make the decision to do things differently. And making those kind of crucial decisions, it's your choice now. It's your opportunity to redirect your trajectory, to get focused. And of course, the key for that is to carve out the time for strategic focus. So most of our clients, that's the biggest holdback. It's the time factor. You're already running ragged. You're already 24/7. You're already maxed out on what you can do. But of course, that's a repeating cycle that'll never end unless you break that pattern, make the decision to do things differently, and then stick to it. And that's really, this is the only way to make a change, right? So I know I'm not telling you anything new here. So making the decision is really important. But then the next part is holding your team and yourself accountable to the plan that you're making. So we're going to help you make a really good plan for Q2, but a plan only matters if it drives results. So you have to hold yourself and your team accountable to those decisions, to those important milestones that we're setting in this plan. So decide and stick with it. So, and you know how it is. Your time, if you let it, your time will get sucked up. So we have to make sure that you set it aside for those strategic initiatives. And the only way that works is if the time that you set aside is sacred, it's untouchable, it's written in stone. So to really understand this and to prepare for this, doing things differently, the first thing that needs to happen is setting that time aside and being unwavering in it. So what I like to practice is what we call the miracle hour, where this might sound like a lot, but it's a habit just like everything else, where every day you set aside 1 hour. So that's 7 hours a week. Now, when you do that consistently, it will drive huge results. So every day you have to map out in your calendar where you set 1 hour aside to work on your business strategically. An hour a day is not that much. You can get up a little bit earlier, you can go to bed a little bit later, and you can be more effective in the way that you spend your day and the way you utilize your team, and that you can gain that hour very quickly. But it's just something that you have to decide and then to focus on. And it has to be non-negotiable. That's the only way you're going to change this. So to be able to get there and to be consistent about it, you'll need two things. You'll need, one, the inspiration to make the decision and then stick with it. But then you'll need the discipline to stick with it. So the one doesn't work without the other. If you just trying to will it, it's going to feel like a slog. It's going to feel like an ordeal that you don't really want to do. So you have to start with the inspiration. Like, why are you doing this? Why is this change so important to you? Why is it so important that you change the way you do things? What are those results, those outcomes, that dream that is so important to you that you're willing to go against your habits? Because habit gravity is going to pull at you from whichever direction. And it's strong because you've been practicing this for a long time. So this is where you have to decide that you're going to stick with your dream, but the dream has to be clear. If you can't see it, you can't make it happen. So you have to have the clarity of your vision to be inspired by it. And then, of course, the discipline to stick to it consistently. You can't do one without the other. So how do you do it? Well, pretty simple. Make the decision to block out that hour every single day on your calendar right now. If you're watching this recording, pause the recording and block out that hour in your calendar right now. It doesn't have to be the same time slot every day. And if you know there's like one day where there's absolutely no way you can get it done well, make that hour happen added to another time block every week so that you, in the end, still come out with those 7 hours a week. But remember, it's written in stone. Once you put it down, it's untouchable. So decide, commit, make sure you have the clear vision of why that outcome is so important. But the most important thing is then you have to execute on it consistently. And this might feel daunting to you. If you're already overwhelmed, trying to figure out where to get another hour from might feel insane. But to make the changes you want to make, you have to get uncomfortable with the discomfort of change, because things will not change if you keep going the way you're going, right? So you have to break old patterns, because these old patterns are going to just keep you in the same rut, which means you're going to get the same results, right? You know the old Einstein quote, you can't keep doing things the same way and expect different results. So here's one suggestion for getting you there. First of all, do a time study. Most of our clients don't even know what they spend their day every single day doing. And, I don't know about you. Have you ever gotten to at the end of the day and you're like, okay, I was really busy all day, but I have no idea what I actually did? Well, doing a time study will really help you understand how you're spending your time. So that means it's a little bit tedious, but I promise you, it'll give you great results, where every day you write down all day long what you're doing. Every time you're switching something, you write down what you were doing and how long it took you. And do that for a few days in a row. And it might feel tedious, but what will happen is even after a day or two, you'll get pissed off at yourself, because you'll realize that a lot of your day you're spending just in the weeds, just in the day-to-day stuff, the operational stuff that's not making a difference to your business. And just from knowing that, now you know that, you can't unknow it, you'll just automatically start making some changes. But then, of course, you have to also implement the conscious changes. So one thing you want to pay attention to is, if you're spending your day on all these things that seem super urgent, well, ask again, because a lot of those are not really urgent. You just think they are. Because you can take your time to review those and go, all right, what is really urgent? What do I really have to do? Or what can actually go to somebody else here? And you'll find out there's going to be a lot on your list that is not that urgent and that really does not have to be done by you. So when you're looking at your everyday list of all the things that you've done, you want to look at it from the perspective of, what was actually strategic work that I did? What was anything that is actually going to drive my business forward? And how much did I spend my time just working in the business versus on the business? Because all the in the business, that's what we have to start chipping away on. So focus on the strategic stuff, and you want to start making space. So all the stuff that's transactional, all the working in the business stuff, eventually all that needs to come off your plate. So I know that won't happen overnight, but that means start being strategic about where you're shifting that responsibility. So identify the high potentials on your team, as in the ones that are hungry, that love to learn, that want more responsibility, that like stepping up, and you might not even have given them the opportunity so far to do so. But just for a moment, pay attention to who on your team is in that position where they can take on more work and they actually want to, because they like to grow, they like to build their career, they want to get better and step it up. So those are the people you want to keep closer to you. You want to start training them on all the lower level stuff that's on your plate and start giving it to them. And look, it's a huge opportunity for them. You might think, oh, they're just going to grumble because I give them more work. But you'll be surprised how many, when you think about those A players, how many of them will actually be super excited because you're trusting them with more. You're giving them more responsibility. You're training them more. You're spending time with them. And again, this is not you shoving them into the deep end of the pool. You have to support them. So in the beginning, the time that you were spending on the task before will be spent training them on that task. So to make sure they have the support, they have the knowledge, they have all the resources they need to do an amazing job for you. But that means it's now off your plate. So the second they got that, even at a pretty basic level, you let them run with it. You train them, you do it with them, you watch them do it, and then you let them do it. And then you get feedback from them how it went. So that's really important that you start shifting things like that. So now they have more responsibility. They're stoked up because they're learning, they're growing, and you have the time for that miracle hour. And that's all we're going for in the beginning. So what that means for your Q2 plan. First thing is, all right, now you have time to actually look at this, start with a gap analysis. So, pretty logical, like where are you now? Where do you want to go? And what's in the middle? What's in the middle? What's preventing you from getting from here to there? So you start with understanding what your critical breakthrough would be. And these are the bold choices that what you want to make, your 1 to 3 initiatives that will 10x your impact. You have to know what those are. So those are the bold choices that you want to make. And you have to know, it's like, where am I right now? This is where I want to go. Well, what's in the middle of that? So first of that is really determining your priorities. To get from here to there, what are the priorities and what do I need to fix first, focus on? There's a great book by Michael Michalowicz that's called Fix This Next, I believe. And he really talks about how it's so important not to just focus on the most obvious choices, but first ask the question, what's in my way of doing this actually better? So if in your mind, what you really have to fix is sales because your revenue is too low, well, chances are, yes, you want to drive sales, but first you have to fix profitability. So in your gap analysis, when you figure out what your priorities are, that's really what you want to focus on. It's like, what do I have to fix first and focus on first so that I can build on that? So do you have to fix your profit margin first? Do you have to fix your sales? Do you have to fix your marketing? How about client delivery? Where's your priority that you need to address first so everything else after that will have a lot more impact? So think about that. What will 10x your impact and focus there? So here's 6 questions for you to help you get clear before you can actually get to the planning. 1, of course, what is that goal, right? So what are those 1, 2, 3 BHAGs that you really want to reach? Second thing, where are you right now? What's the gap, right? And then ask yourself what the obstacles are. What are the obstacles that are in between here and there? And then what obstacle do I need to address next, as in what we already talked about? and what's your next step right now. So you know what the change is that you want to drive. You know what the challenges are to get to that change. But the biggest holdback for most people is to determine what's my next step. Like, what's the first step that I'm going to take that'll get me over that resistance? Because there's all sorts of stories in your head for why you can't get from here to there. So there's resistance. But your first step is what kicks off the momentum. So once you start taking that first step and things are going to start happening, you're in a much better place, because now you have some energy in there, some momentum in there, and you can see how you can course correct, right? You can't course correct when you're stuck in place. So that's why it's so important that in this whole analysis, you don't get stuck in, it has to be perfect first. You want to start with the imperfect action, because once you're rolling, once you're moving, then you can course correct, and that means you get to where you want to go faster. Even if you make some mistakes on the route, that's a whole lot better than being stuck not moving forward. So what's your first step right now that you're going to take? And then, of course, the really important question is, by when will I take it? And by when will I complete that first step? So now you have to assign metrics to hold yourself and your team accountable. And in this whole process, in planning all together, the most important thing you have to do is assigning the metrics that are worth measuring, right? And for a lot of our clients, what I see over and over is they don't do planning. They don't say specific things because they're not really sure what they should measure. So what are your metrics that are determining and defining your growth? So sometimes when we're talking about KPIs, they're like your regular KPIs that you always have to pay attention to, and then they're your growth KPIs, and those are specifically related to what are the change that we're making, right? So your major KPI, it's an outcome metric, right? So as an example, let's say that your goal for Q2 is raise our profit by 1 million, right? So I'm just picking a round number, raise our profit by 1 million. So that's your KPI that you're going for. That's the main KPI, your outcome metric. But then to start including your team, raising their performance, getting them to show up and buy in, now we're going to have to talk about process metrics. And process metrics are the metrics that are measuring our action steps. So you determine the outcome metric, and then you have the opportunity to collaborate with your team on those process metrics, because that's how you drive accountability. So you tell them, hey, we need to make that extra $1 million in profit this quarter. So for them, it's up to them to come up with their own plan for their functional business area, for what that's going to mean, how they will engage with that. You gave them strategy for the entire company, and then they need to come back to you with their own strategy for how they will help you get there, how they will contribute to company strategy in this. And they will set their own metrics in that, and then you sit down and you coach with them on that, and you help them determine, is that metric reasonable? Does it need to be increased, lowered? Any of the process steps, any of the action steps, are they the right ones? Are they the wrong ones? But that's really where you get them to really collaborate with you, where you get them to show up and start thinking strategically about how they are contributing to the overall company strategy. So that means you're taking a lot off your plate. You're giving opportunity, you're shifting responsibility, but that also means you're expecting accountability from your team. And you will notice very quickly when you're getting that specific, when you're setting the inspiration, but also the discipline for yourself and for your team, how your team and you will start showing up differently. So I hope this helps. This is absolutely non-negotiable for you right now, because Q2 is right around the corner and you cannot spend another quarter being stuck in the weeds. So I hope this helps. let us know how you go. If you have any questions, reach out to us. There's also a brand new training out there that talks about all this in more detail. Go to bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com/leap, bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com/leap. Click on that link, watch the free training, and I will see you next time.